right, next section, 5.3, we're going to talk about the heart. So the heart is going to be located right in between the lungs, roughly the size of your fist. It beats more than 100,000 times a day, roughly 2,500 gallons a day. So this is going to, like I said, be located between the lungs, pointing downward towards the left hip. This consists mostly of myocardium, which is going to be that thick muscular wall of the heart that contains that cardiac muscle tissue. Those muscle fibers are going to be branched and connected by intercalculated discs, which contain those gap junctions that allow for the rapid communication between cardiac cells. This is going to allow those cells to contract in unison. They're also going to be connected by desmosomes. Those are those cell junctions that prevent overstretching by holding those adjacent cells together. Surrounded by a sac called the pericardium. So the outermost layer of the heart is going to be a pericardium, which secretes pericardial fluid for lubrication. So when the heart beats against the pericardium, it doesn't cause friction or breakdown of that heart muscle. Inside the heart, there is going to be a septum that divides the heart into right and left sides. The right side is going to be responsible for pumping blood to the lungs. Inside the lungs, blood is going to pick up oxygen, drop off carbon dioxide. And the left side, the blood is going to be pumped to the rest of the body, where it will drop off oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide. The heart itself consists of 4 chambers. There'll be 2 upper atria and 2 lower ventricles. And we'll look at some of those different regions of the heart in a moment. But here's the outermost, the outside image of the heart. Like I said, it's going to point downwards towards the left hip. The myocardium is going to need its own blood supply. Keep in mind that the heart is an organ made up of primarily cardiac muscle tissue. All of those muscle cells are going to require huge amounts of oxygen, and they're going to produce huge amounts of carbon dioxide. So the heart itself is going to need its own blood supply. There are going to be coronary arteries that supply blood to it. They are going to be the very first to branch off of the aorta. Here's our aorta right here. We're going to have, so they're going to be the first branches off the aorta. There are also going to be coronary veins to help drain the heart, remove the blood from the heart. These are going to empty into the right atrium. Coronary artery disease is when we have a blockage in the coronary arteries causing a myocardial infarction. In other words, a heart attack is caused by blockages or clots in the blood supply to the heart itself. All right, so now we want to discuss sort of the blood flow through the heart. The superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava carry the oxygen poor and carbon dioxide rich from the body to the right atrium. So that would be the superior vena cava. That's going to be the branch of the major vein that's draining blood back into the heart, and the inferior vena cava is draining blood again from the lower half of the body. It's going to be dumping it into the upper right atria of the heart. The blood is then going to flow from the right atria into the right ventricle, passing through the tricuspid valve. The right ventricle is going to then pump the blood out of the heart and into the pulmonary trunk. This pulmonary trunk is going to take that blood to the lungs. So we have our oxygen poor blood being dumped from the body, the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, into the right atria. From there, it drains into the ventricle, the lower right ventricle, and shoots back out into the pulmonary branches that are going to take it to the lungs. Once we have our blood exchange in the lungs, we're going to see the blood flowing back to the heart, where it will enter the left atrium. From the left atrium, it'll then drain down into the left ventricle, and from there it will pump out through the aorta and take that oxygen-rich blood to the rest of the body. So there are a couple of things that are going to control the heartbeat. There's the cardiac control center in the brain, which can actually increase or decrease the heart rate depending on the body's needs. There are also several hormones that can help increase and decrease the heart rate. And we'll talk about those when we talk about our nervous system and our endocrine system. All right, you should be able to describe the flow of blood through the heart. We didn't really go into the lub-dub sounds of the heartbeat, but that it's mentioned briefly in your textbook, so you can read it there. What I really want you to focus on for this section of the text is to focus on the movement of blood through the heart. So the blood enters the heart through the right atria, drops down into the right ventricle, and leaves to go to the lungs. Once it gets to the lungs, we drop off carbon dioxide, pick up oxygen, and then we come back into the left atria, dump down into the left ventricle, and then pump back out through the aorta. So you should know the flow of blood through the heart and where it's going. When it comes from the body, pumps out into the lungs, gas exchange, comes back to the heart, and then pumps out to the rest of the body, where there'll be another gas exchange, comes back into the heart from the body, pumps from the right atria down into the right ventricle. Pumps from the right atria down into the right ventricle, out to the lungs, returns through the left atria, down into the left ventricle, out to the body. So you should know and be very familiar with the flow of blood through the heart. All right, and that's it for this section.